Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Be More podcast, where we inspire you to be more of every role within the Salesforce community and beyond. For today's session, we are exploring what it means to be more neurodivergent trailblazer. So I'm joined today by Abby. Are you okay to introduce yourself to our audience, please?
Absolutely. So my name is Allie Lawler. By day, I am a principal solutions engineer at Serious Solutions. And outside of that, I have 18 other jobs. But one of those is that I lead the Neurodivergent Trailblazers community group.
Explain to our audience what that group is about, what it means to be a neurodivergent trailblazer, and ultimately, maybe we'll start to get onto some of the benefits of the group as well.
Yeah, so neurodivergence is a term that means someone whose brain function, the way that our brain processes information, the way that we react to information, and the way that our brains orient us in the world functions in a way that's different than the norm or what is typical.
Yeah.
Usually, this means things like, or this manifests as things like autism or ADHD, dyslexia or dyscalculia. There's kind of a huge number of terms that can fall under neurodivergence. But ultimately, what it comes down to is someone whose brain just operates differently. And as a result, that person can often feel like they're different and like they don't belong just because of the way their brain works. And so the Neurodivergent Trailblazers community group is a place for us to talk about the challenges of being neurodivergent, especially in what is often a corporate workplace, and a place where we can kind of share resources and support each other and know that we're all different and a little weird. So it's a place where that difference is just the new normal.
I guess you would explore Salesforce related topics as well, like maybe how to study for a particular exam if your brain works a certain way, or how to deal with a high stress situation, right?
Absolutely. Because the Salesforce ecosystem really lends itself to a lot of roles that are very, that have a lot of variety in them. So think about roles like being a business analyst or being a consultant. A lot of these roles require that you have your attention in a lot of different places.
Yes.
And so that can be really challenging if you're a neurodivergent. And then also, there are a lot of things that we actually do within a Salesforce org that we can build to be more neurodivergent friendly. So think about things like page layouts. People who are neurodivergent, our brains tend to be significantly more visual. So we like a lot of visual cues. We can sometimes have a lot of trouble learning new things. So the way that we train our users on Salesforce can be adjusted to be neurodivergent friendly. And so we talk about strategies not only for living in our neurodivergent brains, existing in spaces, but also how do you build to be more inclusive?
Okay, awesome. And actually, I'm just going to kind of spotlight on something there because I'm keen to hear your thoughts on this. Because I was advocating yesterday for using emojis in Salesforce and why everyone should use emojis. Is that good with you?
It is. And I think a lot of businesses are really afraid to get a little bit more fun with their visuals because they think it won't be professional. And, I think that what is professional has been changing significantly over the past decade. There are a lot of things like I have tattoos all over my arms. I had purple hair for a little while. And just because I have these things, it doesn't take away from my knowledge and my capability. The same way that having people log onto a homepage that greets them with a happy emoji, that doesn't take away from the work that they're doing for your customers. And in fact, studies show that having positive visuals around someone in a space will affect their mood and make them more productive and ultimately help serve your customers better. So I'm a huge advocate for not only using emojis, but also think about a lot of fields that we use in Salesforce. On opportunities, we have our stages. On cases, we have our status bar. And a lot of those things, why wouldn't we make them visual? Something that I do in my work. So we have like a custom package for our customers that we do for testing status. So as they're testing something, they can submit a test that's failed or they can submit a test that passes. And if everything is passing, it has like a picture of a big thumbs up. And something has failed, it actually has a GIF of somebody slamming a head on their desk.
Okay.
And it's the same thing as a status bar. It's just a little bit more fun.
Yeah, awesome. And I think definitely with the statuses, you can put emojis in those as well. And even if it's simple as like 1, 2, 3 across the top, I think it can go a long way. I think there's definitely businesses that are perhaps on a journey to embrace this type of thing. I feel like emoji is like perhaps the starter level, and then a GIF is perhaps the next step, right? But I think a couple of flows that I've built and they end on the successful screen and got a thumbs up, or I think Elmo with confetti is in an org that I touched on somewhere because I was like, celebrate, it's worked, it's done the thing, and you can do the next thing, right? Do you play with gifts like that as well?
I do, yep. Anything to make it just a little bit more positive of an environment, because especially when you have a neurodivergent brain, sometimes while monotony can be comforting in a way, knowing what to expect, having predictability in your day, it also means that it can cause people to disengage from their work. And so when you have people who are not engaged in the work they're doing, they're usually not doing work that's as good. And so adding those little elements that can just give a little bit of dopamine, a little bit of serotonin, to make their day just a little bit brighter could help break up that monotony and help people be more productive.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So let's jump back to the group, if we may, and thinking about the types of people that it attracts, like in terms of the roles. And we've touched on this a little bit already, but you have admins, developers, consultants, marketers, architects. You attract everybody across all of those different umbrellas, right?
Absolutely. There are a lot of people who are just learning that they're neurodivergent, because there have been a lot of recent changes in the medical community about how people get diagnosed and what diagnostic criteria there are. And so a lot of people who are new to the diagnosis, but then that really does span the board. I do consulting sales. We have people who are admins and BAs. We have consultants and developers. We have folks on the front end of things. And it really goes to show that neurodivergence is all around you, even if you don't know about it.
Yeah, exactly. And the group itself, do you meet in person? Do you meet virtually? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so we do meet virtually. Because this is something that affects people all over the place. We want to make sure that everyone can join meetings and everyone can be present for that. And so we do virtual meetings. We have one coming up on November 6th, I believe. So coming up really soon. And then if we can, I would love to start just having maybe little meetups at different events. So I would love to have a meetup at Dreamforce next year. And then I'm also on the board for the Women in Tech Conference, Witness Success. And we would love to have a meetup at Witness Success as well.
Okay. Awesome. Great. And what types of things do you find the group has spoken about so far? I know we touched on a couple of suggested topics, but maybe kind of tease our audience a little bit of what's coming up, what you're planning for the future to kind of encourage more people to join and be part of it.
Yeah. So one of the tough things about the Trailblazer community groups is that in addition to meetings, you get like a group on Trailhead, and it can sometimes be really hard to remember to go check in on things. A really common thing with neurodivergence, especially if you're like me and you have ADHD, is remembering to go look at things that you don't actively have open and that don't notify you. And so we are just launching a Slack community where people can communicate, and it's just a little bit easier for us to work together. And then on our next meeting, we're going to be unveiling the start of our resource library. Because neurodivergence manifests so differently in everyone, it's important that we have access to a lot of different resources that might resonate with different people. Just because I find a resource helpful for myself personally doesn't mean that it will resonate with somebody else. So we want to make sure that we have just a wealth of knowledge available to help people learn what supports they might need in the workplace, strategies for how they can be a more effective person at home and at work, resources for how to connect with others, because sometimes having something that makes you different from the norm or what's typical can be really isolating, and we want to make sure that people feel that sense of connection together.
Okay. Yeah. And I think it's important as well to consider somebody's journey with their own neurodivergence as well, because they could be recently diagnosed. They could have been diagnosed 2-3 years ago. So perhaps a little bit more comfortable talking to others about it and kind of having those conversations than perhaps somebody that's kind of still getting to terms with it themselves, right? Do you find that as well?
Absolutely, because there are going to be people who are diagnosed as children, which is significantly more common for folks who are male. And then we have a lot of people who were diagnosed sometime within the last 5 years, and some people who aren't even formally diagnosed. We also are big fans of allies joining us. So, it's important to really kind of set a baseline for language. So that's something that we did at our very first meeting is we said, hey, let's arm people with language to talk about this. And how do we talk about it in a way that's inclusive of everyone and where they're going to be on their journey? How do we make sure that everyone understands how to be respectful of where people are at? With terminology in any inclusion space, so disability, race, anything like that, language is so quickly evolving, and it's really important to kind of stay on top of that and know how to respectfully communicate and talk about things. So that's what we focused on very first was education.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Well, that's great. And that's super important. So big fan of that. So thinking about this now, maybe somebody's listening to the podcast and they're thinking about engaging with the group, but maybe they're not quite sure. They're maybe a little bit nervous to join. What advice would you give that person?
Yeah. So first, obviously, head online and just join the group on the Trailblazer community.
Yeah.
So if you go to Trailhead, there are links right along the top. One of those is for collaboration in groups. And you can find us there at the Neurodivergent Trailblazer community. From there, we have links to our Slack channel, our Slack workspace, and then also to our trailblazercommunitygroups.com
Yeah.
which is actually where meetings are hosted. So all of that is linked through Trailhead. But in terms of engaging, the nice part is that we really don't hold people to a standard. Something that I personally struggle with in my life, my workplace, is meeting productivity standards. As you can tell by the fact that my wall has been half painted blue, I'm sometimes not very good at sticking to things or the pressure to finish something or engage in something can sometimes be paralyzing for me. I did this months ago and it's still not done. And so we really don't pressure you to, be posted all the time. And you can just get involved by reading. You can be a lurker in our community, and that's totally fine. You can start by just doing reacts to people's posts in Slack. There's really no wrong way to engage. And if you'd like, you are always welcome to just privately message me. I have enough extroverted energy to share. So if you are ever just too nervous to talk in the group or anything like that, you can always just message me directly. And I'm more than happy to bring you along and introduce you to the group, etc.
I love that. I feel like at times I could do with some more of that extroverted energy as well. So that's great to know. And I guess if the group's meeting virtually, right, there's no pressure to turn your camera on or to actually speak up, right? You can just almost spectate, right? That's fine as well.
Absolutely. Yep. The main thing is as long as you're like being respectful and not, I don't know, talking crap about us behind the scenes. Absolutely, just come and hang out, listen, learn. There are no standards for how to participate the correct way. That doesn't exist. We're just here to be a resource to let people know that they're not alone in any way that they're feeling about being neurodivergent in the workplace, and make sure that we give people that space.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So thinking about this now, and I know the group is still relatively new, but you probably learn a couple of things along the way, right? Already. So if you had a chance to redo, would you do anything differently? Would you change anything?
Prepare a little bit more in advance. Again, I'm a bad executor of ideas. I'm great at having ideas. I'm really poor at executing them fully. And so there's a couple of things that I might have liked to have ready in advance. When you apply to have a new community group, it is like a timeline that you don't know in advance. So you apply, and then sometime you might get accepted. And so they sent me the acceptance when I was in the middle of a very, very difficult deployment, and I had zero time to do anything, which I now have much more time, but I just really wasn't prepared. So I would like to have prepared a little bit more. And I think sometimes it just, I forget to tell people about it, and I want more people to know about it because it's great to talk with people who understand the challenges that you have, and I want other people to be able to experience that. So it really is more about preparation and planning on my own part that I wish I had done better. But I'm really glad that we have it. And the nice part is that just like any other kind of space that I've been at in the Salesforce ecosystem, we're a group, we're a team. People are always willing to step up and talk and help out too. So there's never been a point where I've like felt ashamed for not being as prepared as I wish I was. People are supportive and kind, and that's just always the case in Salesforce people. So
yeah, I think that's great, and I can certainly relate to that a little bit myself. Like on a personal level, I work with somebody else in the Salesforce ecosystem. We work together quite closely on various things, and I'm basically the organizer, the doer, and they are the ideas and the energy, because I often don't like have that extroverted energy. So I can totally relate to kind of working with somebody that's like the opposite to me, and as a result, we balance each other out. So yeah, I think
that's great.
That's awesome. Okay, so what skills or attributes do you think it takes to be part of the group? What kind of qualities perhaps do you need? Like, do you need to be curious? Do you need to be a people person, a social person? I know we've kind of touched on a little bit of those things already, but what do you think about that?
So I think that, like I said, there's nothing that's going to be like, if you don't have this, you're kicked out. That doesn't.
Yeah.
But in terms of, just working towards skills that would make you a more engaged community member is maybe a better thing for people to aim for. Is if you want to be a more engaged community member, I would encourage people to be open-minded because everyone's experience is different. And one thing that's really big in neurodivergent spaces is this idea of intersectionality, where just because you have ADHD and I have ADHD, first, our ADHD experiences don't have to be the same. But I'm also autistic. And so I have unique challenges that come from being ADHD and autistic together. And so being open-minded, being willing to hear others' experiences, and being willing to validate those experiences, even if they don't apply to you, is really important. We want people to know that whatever they're experiencing, that's their experience, and we can't take that away from them. And then the other thing that I would say is being kind of ready to learn how to step up a little bit. One thing that I like to encourage people to do that is very difficult to start, and this is something that I have the privilege of being very extroverted for, but a huge challenge in neurodivergent communities, especially in the workplace, is communicating about it and advocating for it. And I would love for everyone who engages to have a goal of learning to be a better advocate. And so that means being willing to put yourself in challenging situations, learning just how to take those small steps toward advocacy. Because I think about a company that I worked for a couple jobs ago had some structures in place that were really not very inclusive. And I did not feel comfortable in some of those situations speaking up. And if I had, it would have helped myself and others. And, eventually there was a time where I did speak up, and, I eventually left the company altogether and whatever. But especially in the workplace, when people's literal livelihoods depend on them being able to operate as themselves to be successful, it's really important that we all learn to be better advocates. And so I would just ask that when people engage, they keep their mind toward that advocacy and toward taking small steps into that. I'm not going to say, hey, everyone, go challenge your boss on something tomorrow. That's not realistic, and that might not be safe to do. But I want people to learn how to start taking those steps into advocacy, how to start teaching people around them about neurodivergence. And so just having that willingness to start taking steps, I think, is something that I would encourage people to have as well.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So takeaways from that, from my point of view, respect is important for each individual's circumstance and ultimately how they relate to their condition or not. And I guess the other thing that I'm kind of curious about here is I'm like a firm believer that Trailblazer community groups are a great way to practice public speaking. And I'm not saying, oh, everyone go in and go to speak all at the same time, because it's not going to work. But do you support that as well? Do you think that's a good idea? And do you think it can help people that are perhaps neurodivergent too?
Well, Tom, now you've hit on one of my other jobs. So actually,
Okay.
I coach public speaking at the local high school.
Right.
So I also literally teach people how to speak. And yes, absolutely. At any time that we're planning on meeting, if somebody is interested in talking about something, even if it's for 5 minutes, yes, the answer is yes. Let's do it. Because public speaking can be absolutely terrifying, and honestly, like, I've worked with students who are afraid to talk in front of just me. And so even just if we all need to, we'll all turn our cameras off so you can talk to a blank screen. That works too. I want to give people that opportunity to get their feet wet a little bit, to see that even though it is scary, it has so many benefits to learning how to be a public speaker and to learn how to talk in a meeting capacity. It just has so many benefits, not only for your career, but for personally. And so I do want to encourage people to do that. And meetings are an awesome place to start. And I can confirm I will speak on behalf of your local user groups. I'll speak on behalf of any groups around you. Every single community group leader that I know would be more than happy to have you come talk about something for 5 minutes to get you started. 100%.
Yeah, definitely. Because as a community group leader myself as well, like, we always need speakers.
We always need content. We always need something to do.
Yeah, so please give us speakers. Please give us content. That would be great. So, and I think I can certainly relate to that as well. Like, from a confidence point of view, public speaking isn't my forte, right? I'm naturally introverted, so I don't do it like naturally. It's something that I've taught myself to do, and by building confidence, I think the first time I spoke was like at a virtual event, and it was pre-recorded. So that was a great way to kind of build confidence. But I think CGL groups as well are another great way of doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, I tell my students all the time, I'm like, here's the thing. There might be times in your life when you are asked to speak something that you're not a fan of, that you're not comfortable in. There might be a situation where your boss asks you to speak in a client meeting. That is not a fun time. I've had to lead client meetings where they are mad, and it's not a good thing for anybody. And so speaking at a community group meeting, this is an environment where every single person in the room wants you to be successful. Every single person in the room wants you to succeed, wants you to have a great time, and is excited to listen to you. And so that's something definitely to take advantage of.
Yeah, exactly. It's a safe space.
Okay.
Right? People are there to support you. You're there to support others as well. So it's mutually beneficial, I think. So thinking about this now as perhaps an opportunity to demyth or clarify something, and happy to kind of change this or pivot this if it doesn't work too well for the group. But when people think about the group, do they have a common misconception?
Yes. I think the biggest thing is that you have to be neurodivergent to be in the group, or that you have to be like officially diagnosed and know a lot about neurodivergence. And the whole point of the group is to teach people and give you a supportive space. And so I actually think it's better for people who are not as knowledgeable and for people who are not as sure about their diagnosis, because we're here to support you through that. And so you don't have to have an official diagnosis. There's something called self-diagnosis, and especially for adults, especially in America where healthcare is not accessible for everyone, sometimes getting that diagnosis is not available to you. So you don't need to have an official diagnosis. And also, if you want to just learn how to be a better coworker for neurodivergent people, if you want to learn how to be a better manager for neurodivergent people, this group is for you too. And so this is a very open space to talk about neurodivergence. And so you don't have to, there's no minimum barrier for entry.
Yeah. Okay. And I guess another part just to add onto that, and I hope we're on the same page here, but there's no pressure to contribute or disclose your diagnosis or your own journey. You can participate how you like, right?
Exactly. Yep. Especially because there are situations, especially, the US has protections in place, legally, federally, for protected classes, and not everyone lives in a country where that's the case. And there are a lot of situations, even in the US, where your employer will treat you differently if you disclose that you're autistic, for example. And so no one ever needs to disclose any of that information about themselves. I can speak for myself personally. Anything that you say to me, especially in private messages, stays there. I want people to know that you absolutely can talk to me about that if you'd like, but there is no pressure to disclose in the group. Because in some cases that might not be safe for people, and people's safety is always number one priority.
Yeah, exactly. I can totally agree and relate to that. So thinking about this now, as unfortunately we are going to have to wrap up today's session, but before we do go, what's a way for people to connect with you and engage with the Neurodivergent Trailblazer community?
Yeah. So for myself personally, LinkedIn is definitely the best place. I'm on Threads too, but not a lot of people on Threads. I still have a Twitter somewhere, but I just don't use it very much. So LinkedIn is definitely the number one way to get a hold of me. My name is spelled the way it is on the podcast here. And from there, I do have links on my LinkedIn directly to the Neurodivergent Trailblazers group. But like I said before, head to trailhead.com, click on collaborate and groups, and then just search for Neurodivergent Trailblazers, and we will be there.
Okay, and we can see that Slack workspace popping up sometime soon, right?
Yes, I did already post the link on my LinkedIn. I'll probably do another blast out here too, just so that anyone listening can go find it really easily. But we'd love for you to join us and have conversations and just join in on the fun.
Yeah, collaborate, network, and share if you want to share. Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thanks for your time today. I think it's been a really great, meaningful session. And I hope as a result, you get some more people joining the community and engaging, whether they are neurodivergent themselves or they are just an ally. Everyone's welcome. So that's great. And thanks again for your time.
Absolutely. And thank you both so much for having me.